So, do you really need good audio to have good video?
I'm not sure. Maybe we should talk about it.
Greetings and salutations, I am Skojo in 360. It is one of the most requested things into the podcast email. Skojoin360@gmail.com. Send me your questions, your comments, and your videos. How good is the audio on the Insta360 One R, and how does it compare with the One X, and how does it compare with the GoPro Max? I got all three. Let's break it down. Now, before I get into this, I do want to explain that I have a long history with audio. I was a professional musician in my 20s many years ago, and I started out as an audio producer, produced records, what used to be called records and albums. Then they were called CDs. Now they're MP3s, kids. So I know my way around the audio world. Am I a complete expert? No, but you could say that I'm a bit of an audiophile. So that's why I have things like this condenser mic that I love so much and I've had for about 20 years because it makes me sound like a radio broadcaster. And one of the things I've learned over nearly 2 decades as a video producer is, one, people who produce video generally neglect audio, and the other thing is that bad audio is bad video. A lot of times, especially in the era of YouTube and things like that, most people will be a little bit more forgiving with your lighting issues or maybe not having the highest resolution camera. But if the audio on your video sounds bad, it just gets to be irritating and it makes you want to click out because you can't stand it. So whenever possible, I try to do the most I can with my audio. And that's why now I'm loving where these 360 cameras are going. I believe now the Pilot 1 is coming with a 3.5mm jack so you can put in an external mic. I believe the KooCam does as well. And the Insta360 One R is coming with an adapter so you can plug in an external mic. Yes! So let's start with the One X. The One X, I'm just going to break it down for you. It's the loser. When it first came out, the audio, if it was quiet, no wind, no interference, sounded pretty good. As soon as the wind blew or anything like that, the audio just fell apart. It was so aggravating that it almost made the camera not even worth using. All right, I am on the Insta360 One X now. Turning around to head back to the car because it's just not the best conditions out here. So I'm doing this for you people because I love you. And because I'm a complete idiot. But they did come out with an update to it a while back that did boost some of the gain. It didn't really do much for the wind, but it did make for better audio. So if you're going to get a One X, you're going to be doing okay. Just be careful because A, you can't bring in an external mic, and B, if it's windy at all, you're hosed. All right, the final test. This is a dicey one. I'm going to go pretty fast down a hill here. Can you hear me? Because I'm talking and I'm probably going about 25 miles an hour. The wind's got to be pretty severe. We'll do some playing around with the true audio. And you can decide for yourself. Whew. I put myself in danger for y'all. Now, the GoPro Max came out, and one of the main reasons I got it was because it was saying it had shotgun level quality audio. And to be perfectly honest with you, it does. It's probably the best shotgun level out of a camera this style that I've ever seen. And not only that, but they give you several settings for audio, which is very unusual for a camera that's essentially considered consumer or prosumer. It gives you an ability to record a stereo track. Right now, it's probably quite loud. I'm standing at the edge of the falls here. A stereo track with a raw audio track, a stereo track with raw audio with minimal processing, moderate processing, and heavy processing. And I took this thing out to a waterfall and put it to the test.
Again, this is 1440, 24 frames per second, raw with minimal processing.
Raw audio track, medium processing. Medium processing, again, listen for, is it brittle or is it sound like I'm in a tunnel, that kind of stuff. Listen for, is this something right out of the camera that you're gonna like to hear without having to process? Because I can do audio processing, but I don't like to have to spend extra time on it. So if I can get audio right out of the camera, then more power to all of us. Now, of course, a waterfall is one of the worst places to put anything to a test because heavy winds, loud noise, you're never going to get perfect audio out of those kind of situations. But I would say the GoPro Max held up really well. I was quite impressed with the sound out of it. Was it as good as the 1R? Well, I got the 1R a while back and I was a little bit nervous because the 1X obviously didn't have the best audio, so I was very, very nervous. But I put it to the test on a day when it was windy, it was blizzard, and wow.
Well, this is a pretty good test. See how this thing goes. This is my first time shooting footage with the 1R. It's at 5.7K, 30 frames per second. And I'm in a slight less windy patch right now, but it's pretty windy, so I'm curious whether or not y'all can hear me or not, and how well. But welcome to a small blizzard.
Now, obviously, again, it was gusting 25, 30 miles an hour, so you're still going to get wind noise. There's going to be all kinds of issues. It does have a wind setting on it, which is nice. It adds a little bit of a detectable noise reduction to it, but not half bad considering the noise reduction that you get out of it. But the audio that I've had for the 1R coming straight out of the camera has been really quite good. And you gotta not just listen to it as can you hear it, because any cheap mic, you can hear it if they put in enough treble that kind of grabs your ear. What you want to do is see whether you have a good foundation of audio so that if you're lucky enough later to maybe do some processing with it, that it's nice and clean, has a nice bass to it, and you can expand it like you would with video, adding color or whatever else. So the audio coming right out of the microphone in the 1R has very much impressed me.
This is the Insta360 1R 5.7K 30 frames audio test. Now it's finally not breezy. I've got the camera 18 inches to 24 inches from my face. Here it is further back, so you can tell it's a lot about proximity, all that fun stuff. But as you can tell, at least from my previous test, it sounds pretty good.
And unlike the GoPro Max, which does not have the capability to add an external microphone, the 1R comes with basically a 3.5mm jack that you can buy an adapter for. I have not done this myself yet, but you can plug in a microphone, which I'm very excited about because I have the Rode Wireless Go. Now, if you want to hear how these sound, I have a video earlier in my channel that does a full test of these things, and basically bottom line is I'll tell you they sound pretty darn good. $200 for the set. This is the receiver, this is the transmitter. This thing basically just plugs into your 1R, and then you cold shoe this thing into the camera, essentially disappearing the camera, and it gives you a chance to broadcast a lav mic. And this thing has a built-in mic on it, so you just clip it right there, microphone there, and right out of it, it sounds pretty darn good. Is it as good as like a Sennheiser or something like that? Absolutely not, but you can plug in another microphone and string it up, so you have a lot of versatility with audio for the 1R. So besides the obvious fact that the 1X is the loser in the audio department, which one is the winner? That's where it gets a little complicated. The GoPro Max has exceptional quality for the price. I've just been nothing but impressed with it. It sounds great out of the camera. It gives you multiple levels. So if you are an audiophile, if you want to take the time, I definitely say the GoPro Max has an edge over the 1R if you have the time to process your audio. All the different levels of RAW and all that stuff is fantastic. The downsides, of course, is you can't have an external mic, and it also doesn't have high frame rates. So no slow motion on the GoPro Max, which for video is essentially kind of a deal killer. For audio, it does great. So if you have the time and the resources to process your audio and you don't care about slow motion in 360, the Max is the winner. But the 1R overall, I think, takes the cake because right out of the camera, it sounds pretty darn solid. Is it as good as the GoPro Max? Pretty much. It might come just a little bit short, but when you add the fact that you can add an external microphone, which especially in noisy environments, windy environments, stuff like that, is a huge deal. This is a major thing for the 1R. So basically, in my opinion, when you put in the video quality being similar to the Max, when you put in the fact that it has high frame rates, which the Max doesn't have, and it has comparable level audio to the Max, the 1R is the winner. Now, of course, if you're going to be just making some clips of you jumping off your yacht or shredding some pow with your bras, you may not need audio. You just might want to throw some music underneath it and look cool to your friends. I've yet to accomplish that. But keep in mind, you might want to talk to your friends or your kid or something while you're on your shoot. And so having good audio, really, I just beg of you, invest the time and the money in making sure you have good audio. You will definitely not regret it. All right, that is it for this edition of the 360 Community Podcast. Please leave your questions, comments down below. Also, send me your videos, scojoin360@gmail.com. And if I use them, I'll compliment you and say nice things about you on my podcast. Sorry, I'm not rich enough to give you any presents. And of course, every podcast we've got to leave in the same way. Let's warm up our tap dancing shoes.